Our new friends.
English is hard.
English is real hard.
The city that burned.
We are here to talk to Troy and Guy about what they do. So hello, Troy and Guy.
Hi,
Hello.
Thank you for joining
Bridget
us.
and Umi.
That's right. That is correct. Oompa Loompa.
Oompa Loompa.
There we go.
That
Yep.
city burned too.
Jamma. Whammo.
Certainly that joke has just burned.
I was wondering if the thing you were doing was from the new Hungers game or for District 3.
You know, that was
Three.
there was a lot of meanings back in that number 3. You know. Well, so you are here on our show, so that means that you've got to be nerdy somehow. Tell us about it.
Okay. Well, thank you first of all for having us on your show. I
thank
really
you for having us
appreciate
on
it.
board.
So we've spent our lives being nerdy. So
Awesome.
when podcasts became a thing, we're like, hey, we can be like every other nerd with a podcast and do podcasty stuff.
Good.
Yeah, but ours is different because it's different.
Lovely. Good
That
stuff.
just makes sense. No, I guess.
Well, we focus on other nerds and other geeks.
yeah. So
geeks
we sort of do
specifically.
right.
And it came about because we have a large circle of friends. Everybody's a geek and a nerd.
Gotcha.
And we're like, hey, we can have endless guests pretty much with this.
Yeah.
By just drafting our own friend group.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really appreciate that as much these days.
So what are your individual nerd cred? Like,
Oh, what am I interested in nerd-wise? Or what have I done that's really cool that would get me liked by
either,
other nerds?
both.
Yeah.
I was once the stand-in for Kevin Smith for the movie Catch and Release, which is not a great movie, but I got to do the whole makeup thing, and
Nice.
and I
Nice.
stalked him after he got there to get his
Good.
signature.
Good stuff.
I mean, I think you deserve it.
And
Yeah.
It was worth it.
And then what are your fandoms? Your main
Fandoms. I love board games. I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, which is a huge sink of money. And I love movies, especially kung fu movies.
Cool. That's solid.
I don't have a cred.
No credit at all.
No credit at all. I've been a Trekkie since I guess 74 or 75. I don't even remember. My mom used to watch Star Trek
Your
with
mom.
me. Yep. On the couch. I remember when I was a little kid, and I've been watching Star Trek ever since then.
And now
my-
you're watching Star Trek with your little kid.
Yeah, I am. I am 2 days older than Will Wheaton, so that's my
Ooh.
claim to fame. So when you see him on Next Gen, you'll be like, Guy was the same age, and I was sitting there like, yeah, I could have been there. I totally could have.
Totally.
I guess my geek cred is that once I was Nichelle Nichols' handler. Nichelle Nichols is Uhura from the original series, and
That's
took her around the convention, and I walked her around and everywhere
That's a
and
good
kept an
gig.
eye on her.
That's
So
a good gig.
Yeah.
She kissed him.
right here.
Whoa. Have you
She's
like
such a
not
sweet-
watched that?
I haven't
week
watched
since?
it since. That
Yeah.
was 2001. It's a little dirty.
Pretty solid.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we hear that Rocky Mountain Geek Tank has a live show, YouTube channel, and a podcast.
Well, we started as a live
Okay.
show. We still do
Enlighten
Facebook
us.
Live occasionally. So that happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we started live, then we went to video, and then we went to podcast.
Okay.
So next we need to go to just writing stuff. And
Yeah, we'll
then
just-
we go to smoke signals.
Perfect, yeah.
and-
Or semaphore flags.
Exactly.
Ooh, why did we not think of that? We should have thought of that.
Semaphore.
Semaphore.
Yeah.
It's a big word.
It is. Maybe we'll just go
code.
for full 4.
Well, we could go further and go Sima 5.
Semaphore.
Or well, no, it's doing 3, but we've got 4 now.
Right.
4.
Oh, there you go. That's 4 instead of 3.
Yes. Perfect. So how did you two meet? How did you become
Oh my
friends?
God. I called it the Nerd Commune.
Ooh.
It was a house where a bunch of nerds would pay into it to live there. And they had kind of an open door policy, and a bunch of them were into anime, Japanese anime, and just they ran the whole gambit. And the nexus of the universe of Denver, as far as I'm concerned, is a friend of ours who it seems everybody knows. I met him, he took me to the place, and that's where I met Guy.
And then we played Magic a lot. A lot.
And that was in the day that I did an improvisational comedy troupe. So we'd go practice there a lot, and then the people that lived there would jump in with our games that we did.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. So you talked a little bit about it, but like, what really inspired you to put the show together in the first place?
That's a good question.
Well, when it started, it was kind of a, hey, you guys are doing it wrong. Would you like us to show you how to do it? Well, it was really more of we were the resident geeks of the place that was doing a live show, and they were doing kind of an amalgamation of just so many different things. And we're like, why don't you split it into a geek show and then a not geek stuff show, and we'll take over the geek side. And that's how we kind of jumped into that. And then what inspired us to keep going was we learned about the call of female geeks, that it's a struggle for you guys. And it's not unlike the struggle that we had when we were teenagers back in the day when being a geek and a nerd was not cool.
Yeah.
And
in the 70s and the 80s.
it's one of these things of like, nobody should have to go through that for any reason. And being guys, we're kind of a weird people to pick up the flag, but we're hoping that if guys are not listening to other guys, we'll just hit them with the flag. And that's,
Yep, semaphore flags. We've
Yeah,
already
there we
got
go.
them.
Perfect,
That's
yes.
the use for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we've come
that
full
that
circle.
also sort of then evolved into this whole thing of, hey, we should examine our own group. I mean, like looking internally, as Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true."
Ah,
the last
See,
one black in a day.
I'm now connecting the show
it's all
There we
together.
go.
connected. We're all tied
This is
together
all
now.
just,
It's all-
ooh, this is
So we
wild.
occasionally will throw on the really heavy show, like looking at Gamergate and those kind of things.
Gotcha.
But then we do the not so heavy shows like exploring Star Trek and such.
That can be heavy.
Heavy,
Deep,
it
Deep
can be
Space Nine
heavy.
was heavy.
It was very heavy.
How do you guys like decide on and come up with an idea for each show? Like, what process is that?
We mostly sit down, turn on the recorder, and go, "What are we talking about?
He calls
No.
me the night before and says that. What are we talking about?
What are we talking about?"
It's we try to keep it somewhat topical, which means if it's really topical, we have to release it that Sunday because we try to release it for the Monday commute.
Gotcha.
But if it's out further, we'll think ahead. What movie's coming out in 3 months? Let's talk about that movie, and we can schedule that podcast to come out at that time.
Gotcha.
Like when Rogue One came out, we started trying to cover back on episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, and stuff like that, and kind of.
I don't know why he calls them that. There was no other 3. Just the 3 good ones is all I know.
And 7. Seven was good.
7 was good. I liked 7. How often do you guys go about taping the show?
Once a week, and when we're on our game, we'll do 2 in a row, and we
We'll stock up.
stock up so that way when we have Thanksgiving or a holiday show up, then we can actually take a break and run one of those.
Cool.
Nice. So you touched a little on your mission statement, but what kind of like brought you to that point? Just
So we were working with cosplayers, and we were like, "Hey, the cosplayers are having trouble. Why are the cosplayers having trouble?" And it was like we got blindsided a little bit about that because we had
We're not
we had-
part of that world.
We're not part of that community. We we're model builders mostly is what we do whenever we're interacting in the convention scene. We're model builders or whatever. Or I'm an artist, and so I'm usually in the artist alley or something like that.
Gotcha.
And so we didn't really interact much, and then we ended up hooking up with these cosplayers as part of Geek Tank, and so they were talking to us about, oh yeah, this is what's going on. This is what's going on here and there, and went, wow,
And
we didn't
cosplay's
know.
not consent.
Cosplay is not
Was one of
consent.
those things
Things
when
like
we saw
that.
that and we're like, why is this happening?
Why is it seems so alien to us? So we decided to start
Because it's
investigating
disrespectful.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we try to promote respect within the geek community, that's a big part of it there.
Cool.
Cool. Well, we've got one more question for you guys. It's have you guys seen Stranger Things?
I have.
I
He's not
haven't.
cool. He hasn't.
And okay, so then
It's
this one's
'cause
more
it's
directed
jumpy.
at you.
I don't like jumpy movies. See, that's why. Exactly.
How accurate do you think it was of a depiction of young geeks in the 80s?
Well, being a little bit older than them when I was in the 80s, I didn't curse as much as them. That's one thing. I didn't pick that up until later. It was pretty close. They didn't really get into the bullying that happened at that time,
okay.
which I don't know if it was necessary for the plot, so I didn't mind. That was the only thing that I saw that wasn't quite true because you don't. Back then, you wouldn't advertise so much that you're a geek.
Yeah.
And even in the early 90s, you had a friend who was a jock, but also a geek, and didn't want to let his jock friends know he was a geek because he thought he'd be.
So we'd secretly watch Star Trek.
How
Nice.
does one secretly watch Star Trek?
He would come over to my house, and we would like watch Star Trek, and then we'd watch it because it came on at night, and we'd watch it live.
So he'd have like
Not live.
an inappropriate book for a kid, and inside of it he'd have like Starlog.
Right.
and that.
Right.
Very
So-
nice. Well, we are going to head over to our set, but we'd just like to mention beforehand that you guys are wearing green in
Yes, we
front of
are.
a green screen.
So we will now be the Rocky Mountain Ghost Tank.
Awesome.
Nice. It's
Perfect.
gonna be great.
We're looking forward to some talking heads.
It'll be great.
We'll see you guys in a little bit.
Okay.